Okay. Hi there. Well, this is my inaugural session, and we're going to see how it goes. Right now, I'm just testing things out. I had a little trouble, problem getting everything working together, getting my encoder talking to YouTube and vice versa. That was the hard part. Um, the oops, got a little tilted there. Okay. Um, okay, I'm going to be talking about several things. Um, I'll be talking about them again because I doubt if anybody's going to be seeing this one. But as you may have noticed, I have, or maybe not have noticed, I have a prediction for next year. I think we're going to have a realignment. So this is going to go beyond just a normal, Democrats win, Republicans win, blue wave, red wave kind of a thing. Because when we talk about a red wave or a blue wave, there we're really talking about something that is momentary, is of that years, of that time only. You could have a red wave 1 year, then 2 years later, goes right back. Um, in a realignment, that's not what happens. In a realignment, it's a little more permanent. And the times when you see that are like the last really major realignment that occurred was in 1930 and 32. That was when the Democrats under FDR basically just took over, and Democrats held the White House for 20 years straight. And then came Eisenhower, and Eisenhower was almost a Democrat anyway. He was very progressive, and there was no real change in governmental philosophy under Eisenhower. The next realignment that occurred after that was basically under Reagan. It started under Reagan, and it continued into the 90s a bit. And that was when the Democratic Solid South flipped and became Republican. The Southern Democrats became what were known as Dixiecrats, and they joined the Republican Party and took over the Republican Party and kicked out all the Rockefellers and the Romneys and eventually even the Bushes, and and basically took it over and just do what we have today. Meanwhile, on the Democrat side, the Republicans in New England, because that was one solid Republican territory. That was where the Republican Party got started. That was one solid Republican and solid progressive, and it's flipped because it wasn't going to go with the racist South, and so it flipped and it became Democrat as what it looks like today. So if you were born after 1980 or so, that is the world you know, and you think that it was always like that, and it wasn't. And what that also means that things can change in the future too. The way things seem right now, that seems so permanent, that seems so set, that can change. And I'm going to have a number of videos on that and why I think things are going to change. I think some of the areas that the Republicans have been assuming have been solid Republican and always Republican for the past, 60, 70, 80 years. I think some of them are going to start slipping away. Places like Iowa, places like Kansas, places like Nebraska, maybe even places like Kentucky. These things can happen. After all, look at Virginia. Virginia was once, solid Republican, solid, definitely a southern state. Now it's more or less becoming like a New York. And look at North Carolina now; that's become a purple state. That's no longer a solid South state. Georgia's changed. It's at best, it's at least purple, if not leaning blue. So these things do change. On a state level, the realignments occur a little more frequently. Like if you look at California, if you go back a number of years, that was a very quite Republican state. Reagan came from there, Nixon came from there. It had Arnold Schwarzenegger, a very popular Republican governor. So it can happen, and yet look at it now. California is about as solid blue as can be, and that's because of things that happen in California that are unique to California. So realignments can occur on an individual state, within an individual state, basically at any time, because of the peculiarity of local politics. But on a national level, it doesn't happen very often. It, like I said, the last one, and by the way, that one in the 1980s, I would call that a regional realignment, because the South changed and New England changed, but other stuff didn't. The Midwest didn't change. The West didn't change. The mountain states didn't change. Texas didn't change. Well, no, take that back. Texas went Republican. Sorry. So there's a lot of states that didn't really change in that time period, and so I call that a regional realignment, or a partial realignment, maybe. I don't know. But it wasn't as quite as complete as the FDR alignment. And I think that an alignment is coming now. And why? Why is that happening? Well, I think you could see it. Trump, in his oddness, his policies are mostly pissing on the red states, mostly pissing on the people who voted for him, farmers and blue collar. Go figure. Normally, parties want to take care of the people that voted for him and piss on the other guys. But nope, not Trump. He wants to piss on his own. So I like his rounding up of all of the migrant workers. Who's that helping? It's not helping the Democrats, but it's also really hurting the Republicans. The farmers, they're getting killed. Now, one thing that people just have conveniently forgotten is that the migrant worker was made illegal intentionally under Reagan. It was done intentionally. And why? Very simple. People who are here illegally cannot organize, they cannot unionize, they cannot protest, they cannot run to the government for any protections at all. And so therefore, this is a way of totally disempowering them. And that gave farmers a great deal of power. They could pay them whatever they wanted. They could treat them however they wanted. And so migrant worker, they came here, they worked, but they had no rights. And like I said, that was done intentionally. Now, what's interesting is how farmers themselves didn't quite understand that this was done for them. This wasn't done for anybody else. No other country, even our country, we had no problem. We had no problem with illegal migrant workers up until the 1980s. And the reason why we created them was because of the migrant worker organization that went on under Cesar Chavez in the 60s and the 70s. They wanted to put a stop to that. So they made the migrant workers is illegal. So bye-bye organization, bye-bye Cesar. You know, can't do anything now. You're done. And but for some reason, the farmers lost track of the idea that this was done for them. This was their gift. And by the way, that gift to the Republican, to the farmers, was bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats were on board totally, completely. So there was nobody arguing about it until the Republicans started arguing about it for some strange reason. They made a big deal out of it, and and now they're killing the farmer. Why? There are some theories out there as to why, and we'll maybe go into that in another video. But because everything does happen for a reason, I've learned that in my life. There are very few true accidents when it comes to politics. Things happen for a reason, and the migrant workers are made illegal for a reason, but also rounding them up and shipping them out of the country, that also is being done for a reason. What do you think what do you think it's being done for? I'd like to get other people's comments. I'll talk about that in the future, not on this video, but we'll talk about that another time. But what do you think? Anyway, like I said, I think a realignment's coming, and there's going to be an election happening next year where I think the Democrats are going to do very well in the Senate and in the House. We'll go into it in other videos. I'll go into each of the various states, the important states, Maine and North Carolina and Florida and Georgia and Missouri and Nebraska, and Kansas, and why I think the Democrats are going to end up with roughly about 55 senators, and they'll be going plus 8 because now they have only 47, and why I think they're going to be getting 50 to 60 House seats that they don't have now. So I think the Democrats are going to do quite well next year. But more importantly, I think much of that, unlike a regular wave year, I think much of that change is actually going to be somewhat permanent. I think the Republicans now and Trump are screwing over the rural American farmers and others living in rural areas so badly that those people are not going to forget it real quickly. And they know it's Republicans doing it. They know Democrats aren't doing it. They know Democrats are not shutting down their hospitals. They know Democrats are taking away Medicare and Medicaid on them. Even when they don't like the Democrats, they know that about them at least. And so they're going to be, I think that at least initially they're going to be holding their nose voting Democrat. They've been so brainwashed to hate Democrats that they will find that hard to do at first. But and the cracks are beginning to show now. But remember, this is only September of 2025. We've got another 14, 15 months of this to go through. And Trump is not going to ameliorate the pain very much, I don't think. I'd be surprised if he will. But he has a hard time admitting mistakes. And then when he does admit a mistake, he doesn't understand what to do about it. He thinks that just simply reversing course is enough, and he doesn't realize that, things have changed because of his actions, and therefore the thing to do is not merely to backtrack. That won't be enough. Actually, that kind of gets us segues us into another topic. That is the Hyundai debacle, the arresting and incarcerating 300 Koreans, 475 people all told. But most of what they're talking about now are the Koreans. They have been, they were treated really, really horribly. No due process of law. They're just simply arrested and thrown into a very, very poor conditions, unheated. They're not given blankets, not given soap or anything to bathe themselves, wash themselves, keep clean. They're not given water. They weren't, they were, food was even denied for a short while. It's like, we don't treat hardened criminals this way. When a police arrest a murderer, that murderer is treated better than these Koreans were. And these Koreans were in this country to do us a favor. They're spending billions and billions of dollars to put up that plant. And it's going to have like 8,500 workers to be trained by those Koreans that were rounded up, abused, chained. Some were strip searched. It's unbelievable what they did to them. On the internet right now, there are a number of videos that I've seen going on about how we treated German, Japanese, Italian prisoners in World War II. And these videos basically speak with great pride about how well we treated our prisoners. Well, we don't treat people who are just merely coming here as tourists or coming here to do work to help train Americans. We don't treat them with anywhere near the kindness or consideration or the humanity that we showed our enemies in World War II. How have we degraded as a country? It's beyond me. But here's the other thing: is that put this way, if I was head of Samsung or head of Hyundai or head of a number of other companies that had committed in 2024 because of the CHIPS Act of Biden, I committed to $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion plant being built in the United States. I would really want to get out of that right now. Here's why. A factory, for it to be profitable, it has to operate in a supply chain that is stable and predictable. And that's any factory, because factories, they get parts in, they get pieces in, they get sub-assemblies in that need to be worked on or assembled or done something done to them. And that incoming supply chain needs to be stabilized. If it's not stable, then who knows what's going to happen? Who knows how big the losses will be, or how low the profits will be, or what's going to happen. So, if you're the head of a company, responsible for, billions of dollars, and you decide to put a plant in, the building is starting, but now Trump comes in, he starts whimsically throwing tariffs around. They're up they're up to 80%, down to 20%, up to 100%, down to 15%. Who knows where they're going to go? But that creates risk and uncertainty. And when you're responsible for billions and billions of dollars, you cannot tolerate uncertainty. It's as simple as that. So all these other companies out there, there's a bunch of them that have committed to construction in the United States. I would be very surprised if some of them are not seriously considering halting production at the very least, if not just totally opting out completely. Why not? The future of those plants are totally up in the air. You don't know what the nut job in the office is going to do today or tomorrow. So I think that this potential loss of the 8,000 jobs in Georgia is just the tip of the iceberg. And even if Hyundai stays, and they might, because the relationship between between South Korea and the United States is really deep, and South Korea is not going to want to screw with that at all. And they know that Trump is a short timer. His health isn't good. The odds of him even living out his term is probably pretty low. But even without that, the most he'll be in is another 3 years, 3.5 years, and the relationship between between the United States and South Korea is a deep and long one. And it's going to go far into the future, and so whatever is happening now is really temporary. And I think that the South Koreans will see that as something that they could, grit and bear it, tolerate it, and put up with it for a while. So I think that Hyundai will probably stay, but some of the other ones maybe not. Anyway, so that is a serious thing happening, and we're going to be talking more in the future about the tariffs and how the tariff manipulations that Trump has been doing is causing major American manufacturers, ones that we identify with as American, like General Motors, John Deere, Case, Ford. They're moving some of their production out of the country to Canada and to Mexico primarily. Why? Very simple. When you have a supply chain, which think of a supply chain as maybe 100 nodes, each node being a warehouse or manufacturer or an assembler or some processes going on like painting or refining or something. During that, in order for a car to go out of a final factory, that requires a whole slew of 60, 80, 100, 120 more suppliers. And where are they located? They're located around the world. Around the world. So think about it. Think of this network of suppliers, including the final manufacturer. And then let's say it's 100 nodes. And let's say out of those nodes, 95 of them are in other countries. There's 5 here in the United States. Now, Trump put these tariffs up. That puts a wall between these 5 and the other 95. So, what's easier to do? You want to keep building those widgets, whatever they are. Is it easier to bring those 95 other parts of the supply chain, bring that inside the United States so that all 100 are in the United States? Or is it easier, cheaper, quicker to take the 5 operations that are going on in the United States and move them outside the United States? Move them to Canada, move them to Mexico, move them to Europe, move them to Asia, who knows? Move them somewhere. Just move them out. And that's what's happening. General Motors has moved some manufacturing to Canada, Case, John Deere, Mexico. This is, and then other ones are just shutting down. Foreign manufacturers who had opened up U.S. operations and factories, they're shutting stuff down. Honda, Toyota, Volkswagen. So Trump has been a disaster for American manufacturing, absolute disaster. And I don't see him understanding at all what he's doing. I don't see him getting that aha moment and realizing what he did wrong and then taking steps to correct it. No. I doubt if he'll ever really recognize he did anything wrong. But if perchance he actually does have a glimmer of insight and realize he did something wrong, he's not going to do anything about it. He's not going to publicly admit it. He's not going to say, oops, I screwed up, got to make changes. He's not going to do that. He's going to, he might make some minor alterations to kind of cover his ass. If he's figured out he screwed the farmers, he might throw them a bone. And the farmers, they're dumb enough to think that that's enough for them. Considering how they keep voting against their own interests, I could tell, these are not the brightest, these are not the sharpest knives in the drawer. They just aren't. They've been voting against themselves for 100 years, long before Trump was ever around. They've been voting against their own interests for, since FDR. Figure that out. And anyway, this was in my inaugural video and inaugural podcast. If you do see this, do let me know what you think of it. I'm going to be having more podcasts like this. I'm going to be covering not just merely domestic politics, Trump, etc., although hard not to follow that because it's so much fun. Love him or hate him, Trump is entertaining. Trump is very entertaining. But we'll be talking about NATO, Europe, and Russia and Ukraine, China. By the way, you do look, I do have a couple of war games that I put out covering a possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan. I did that because I was very irritated. I've been very irritated by how a potential invasion of Taiwan has been portrayed and explained to people. They always talk about Taiwan as if it's some kind of piñata. It's just going to sit there and let itself be bombed and invaded and walked over, and it's just going to sit there and let it happen. No, nobody does that. And then they even talk about acts of war as if they're not acts of war. They talk about China doing a blockade of Taiwan, as if China could do that without any kind of blowback. It's like, no, a blockade is by definition an act of war. And when one country commits an act of war against another, that receiving country could do what the fuck it wants against the other one. And if you don't think Taiwan has the ability to shut down China's trade, then you have no idea what modern missiles can do. They could shut China down. They could shut China down so not a single tanker with oil will get into China. And it wouldn't take much to do it. Not much at all. Taiwan can do that in a second. So the idea that Taiwan is, is some kind of weak, target that they'll just sit there and take it. Now, I've done a couple of war games and where I challenged the artificial intelligence robot to beat me, and I play Taiwan, and I don't even use all the resources available. I don't even use all the resources. I just use a couple, and China is absolutely freaking obliterated each time. Now, somebody who's with more military training, can look at that and then tell me how wrong I am. Great. I'll actually do repeat videos showing how they can get around some of my blocking tactics. But until that, China's not going to invade Taiwan if it has any sense at all. If it wants to keep that nice, pretty navy it has, it better not. It better not even think about going after Taiwan. Anyway, I have those. I have other ones, but do drop me a note. I'd like to hear from you. And meanwhile, like and subscribe, of course. And with that, I'll let everybody go. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.